Good morning, first day of fall. And it's funny how your brain, first of all, it's really cool that it's the first day of fall and it's actually getting cooler on the first day of fall. I don't ever remember that happening because normally down here in the South, it's just hotter than Hades till like October. I remember picking pumpkins every year. We get on the pumpkin patch and it's hotter than crap. There's nothing better than sitting on a back of a hayride while it's like 93 degrees in a flannel shirt and pretending it's cool. It does not work. Had apple cider. Oh. Anyhow, yeah, it's super cool because it's starting to cool off here and it's supposed to cool off later this afternoon. I got up this morning an hour early just because I thought it was going to be cooler. And I was like, I don't know what the weather does to me. It just makes me happy when it cools off. I love the summertime too. But once I've reserved my right to go ahead and say I'm done with summer, it's just been hot, sticky, and wet. It's always nasty, but it's good. Now the kids are back in school. I'm ready to move on with my seasons. I'm a season guy. So I hope you enjoy your first day of fall. And, of course, so we're celebrating that with a birthday today, Joan Jett. How old do you think Joan is? I'll play some Joan Jett this morning. I'm a little surprised. She's only 63 years old. She got after it. We're so used to talking about these dudes in their 70s and 80s that are still playing rock and roll. We had Phil Collins up on stage over in Birmingham, England, a couple of days ago, and the dude's like 72, 73. And it's like we're used to, she's still got a lot left in the tank. David Coverdale of Whitesnake, we'll play some Whitesnake this morning as well. He turned 70 today. Daniel Craig, one of those, I'm not a big movie guy. It's not that I don't like movies. Every time I go to a movie, I usually love it. But I got 3 kids, and to find 3 or 4 hours in the middle of a night when there's homework, it's just difficult to get away to see movies, right? But I do love the movie experience, and I normally have to take a loan out to get a popcorn for everybody. But when the 007 movie comes out, No Time to Die, I'll be first in line because I love that. When the Jurassic Park movies come out, my kids love those. I'll watch those, some kind of Disney crap, whatever. But I love the 007, and I love the franchise that Daniel Craig has created for this because I've got my Sean Connery motif. I've got Roger Moore, who I thought was just kind of an old, cranky, just kind of a fat James Bond. You had the Pierce Brosnan, who was almost too pretty to be. But I think Daniel Craig is like, and again, the writing has a lot to do with it. I think he's like the best James Bond I've ever seen. I just do. Maybe it's because it was retroactive a little bit. They did some stuff prior to his life and how he was born and grown up and all this stuff. And Skyfall was great. Anyway, he came out yesterday, and obviously he's hitting the talk circuit and said he does not believe that James Bond should ever be a woman. And, of course, you see that headline and you're like, oh, here we go. No, not so fast, my friend. Just relax. It was actually a compliment towards women. He's like, James Bond is a guy. Why can't women have their own role? And they can. We have the Wonder Womans of the world. We have kick-ass women. Women just suicides. We have a lot of different women movies where women are just kicking the living dirt out of people. They don't have to be James Bond. And so we'll talk about that coming up in just a few minutes right here on KCAST Radio. Also posted a picture. It was kind of funny. Nicole Richie posted something on her Instagram, and I don't follow her, but she had her 40th birthday party, and she caught her hair on fire. And I was like, it was epic. And I got a birthday party story I want to share with you. Get it on the Tony Curry Radio Network. I am Tony Curry. It's kind of weird saying your own name. Sometimes you got to say your own name because no one else will say it. But it is better when someone else says your name if you know what I'm talking about. Dr. Josh is off this week. He'll be back next week. He's taking kids to school. We've got a monster show for you. Joan Jett has a birthday today. I was pleasantly surprised that she is only 63 years of age. I just posted a picture of her on at Tony Curry Radio on Twitter as well as Facebook of her in the Do You Want to Touch? Oh, yeah video where she was wearing the bikini. Ooh. I remember seeing that video for the first time, and they're mosquito bites, but it was still real, man. I was like, okay, I'm all in. Formerly the Runaways. We'll play some Joan Jett coming up in a few minutes. And David Coverdale turned 70 today. David is one of those cats. It's an interesting little life he's had. Tawny Katane, of course, recently died. Was it a year and a half ago? She, of course, the woman who was on the hood of the car for all the videos that he did. And I remember when he was coming out, and for some reason people were writing Robert Plant off, saying he was done, and everyone was making this comparison between David Coverdale and Robert Plant. This had to be 25 years ago, so I'm dating myself. And everyone was like, David Coverdale's the next Robert Plant, and I was like, there isn't another Robert Plant. I hate when people do that. Because there's not. Sometimes there's just one. He's the next Michael Jordan. He's the next Kobe Bryant. No, he's not. There's no other Kobe Bryant. There's no other Michael Jordan. There's no other Hank Aaron. There's not. They can play like him. They could be as good as him, but there's no other. You can't characterize a lot of people like that. And so when they were talking about that, everyone was freaking out, and Robert was like, hello, I'm still over here. I'm not doing anything. I just haven't made a record in a while. Then, of course, Coverdale gets together with Jimmy Page, and that even fueled the fire more with the Coverdale Page thing, which, by the way, was just reissued several weeks ago. And the guy in his own right mind played the part, man. He had the hair, he had the woman, he had the screams, he had the vocal range, he had it all. And then he just kind of fell off the face of the earth. And now Whitesnake is back. If you go to whitesnake.com, you can check out their new album, which is not that good. I'll play the new stuff, man. I'm playing like the new Night Ranger song because I think it's a skiller. I'll play the new classic rock if it's good. In this particular case, it's like some dude that. Well, he's acting like he's 35, but he's really 70. And I like that because that's probably me. I'll probably be opening up jitterbugs when I'm like 83 years old. Anyway, we'll get into that coming up in just a few minutes. Also, Daniel Craig, who I'm a huge fan of. I think what he's done for the 007 James Bond platform, I think has just taken it to an all-new level. I think the last 3 or 4 James Bond movies are by far the best ones. Outside Pussy Galores and all those other weird, strange things that were kind of funny, but they were campy, but they were perfect for the time they came out. But I think the franchise is as healthy as it's ever been, and I can't wait till the new movie comes out. I think it's October 7th. He came out yesterday and said there's no reason why James Bond should ever be a woman. And, of course, as soon as I saw that, I went, oh, here we go. And see, we got to this point where we read headlines and we don't read the story. Got to read the story. He's actually saying no. It's not to say that a woman couldn't play James Bond. It's that there's no reason to have a woman play James Bond. Let's create a kick-ass role for women and create their own type of James Bond character. And we're doing that in a lot of senses. If you watch Wonder Woman, I mean, good Lord, she could be 008. And there's lots of women who get after it and kick some hiney on the movie screen. So we'll talk about that story coming up in just a few minutes right here on the Tony Curry Radio Network. I love that tune. You don't hear it very often. It's called Slide It In. We used to play it all the time, but you never hear it on rock and roll radio, but you do right here on the Tony Curry Radio Network. We're happy to bring it to you. Whitesnakes. David Coverdale turned 70 today. We mentioned Joan Jett, 63. Guess who turned 61 today? Scott Baio turned 61 today. Happy birthday to Scott Baio. David Coverdale continues to do the Whitesnakes thing. As a matter of fact, you go to our webpage at TonyCurryRadio.net, TonyCurryRadio.net, and you go to our tour page and just type in Whitesnake, and it's great. You type in any band you want. You want to see Barry Manilow, Pablo Cruz, AC/DC, The Who, Rolling Stones played Robert Kraft's Party a couple of nights ago. We'll talk about that coming up in just a few minutes. But it's a great tour page, and it'll tell you exactly who's playing. And it'll also have a list of bands that do cover tunes of those particular bands. Some of those traveling bands are pretty good, too, so check that out. I want to get into this Gabby Petito story again. We talked about it yesterday in just a few minutes. I just think it's amazing how the story has really grown legs with America and how we're desperately trying to find this, well, now alleged creep. Who was seen on a deer cam, I guess, late yesterday. We'll talk about that coming up in a few minutes. But also coming up, James Bond. I mentioned I don't go to a lot of movies, and I know people are freaked out by that. I used to play radio with Aldo Greco, and he would go see movies like every single week. I wish I had time. I just can't relax long enough. But when there is a huge movie, and my kid loves the Jurassic Park movies, and we go see some Marvel stuff. And then I'm always like, I'm going to see a James Bond movie. Enough that I would go see like the preview, like the night before. I just love the franchise, and I just think the franchise is as good as it's ever been. I think Daniel Craig is great, and this is his last one. He was asked the question about should 007 ever be a woman? And he said, I don't think I'd ever want to see a woman play 007. And, of course, everyone was like, oh, chill out, relax, okay? He thinks there are better parts for women to play than James Bond. He said, why should a woman play James Bond when there should be just a part as good as James Bond, but for a woman? Why do we have to do that? Why do we have to have, because you can have a woman part. She doesn't have to be James Bondess or Jameis Bond. She can have her own role. A woman deserves to have her own part, her own franchise. Wouldn't it be super cool? Do we have any of those? Do we have any franchises where we have 10, 15 different movies and it's based on a woman's life and you change the female out? I'd love it. It'd be great. Craig's statements come the week before the release of the subsequent Bond film, No Time to Die, which will premiere in theaters on October 8th. It's funny because every time I see a James Bond title, I always swear they've used it before. No Time to Die. Are you sure we haven't had No Time to Die? No. His comments echo those of the franchise producer, Barbara Brocchelli. She's 61. She told Variety in 2020 that James Bond can be of any color, but he is a male and will always be a male. She added that she would rather write characters specifically for women rather than make the iconic lead role a woman as well. She said, strong female characters. I'm not particularly interested in taking a male character and having a woman play it. I think women are far more interesting than that. Wow, what? Did she just say that? I'm not particularly interested in taking a male character and having a woman play it. I think women are far more interesting than that. I feel like a dude trying to play Wonder Woman. I mean, leave it go. It's great. It's fantastic. We don't have to cross all those lines. It's okay to be separate. I know that we have to call people they now, and we have the pronoun. I get all that stuff. I understand it. I'm trying to encapsulate it and understand it and be real and trying to be forward-thinking. But there's no reason why we have to continue to do that. I was talking to, this is Tony Kurre, by the way, on the Kurre and Klapow show. Dr. Josh is off this week on the Tony Kurre Radio Network. Go to Tony Kurre Radio wherever you go on your social media. By the way, we have great podcasts, too. The Kurre and Klapow show podcasts are taking off. If you've ever gotten a chance to listen to them, anything goes, and they're wide open. We had a great podcast the other day on this Hulk dude, this soccer player who divorced his wife and then ended up dating her niece and then married her, and now he's having his fourth child with her, and, man, it was creepy, but it was anyway, we'll talk about that, and you can check out our podcast wherever you get your podcast through Audio Boom. Just check out the Kurre and Klapow. Just Google Kurre and Klapow podcast. You can find it. When I was putting these songs together, I had a list of about 700 songs, and I was like, I want to hear these songs because you just don't hear them on classic rock radio anymore. And there's a station here locally in Birmingham called The Eagle that I got a chance to go work for. And I was like, I'm going to do my own thing because I think the music we play is going to be a lot better. Nothing against them. They can play whatever they want. And so Possum Kingdom from the Toadies is one of those songs. And so I was talking to Mark Ingram, the athletic director for the UAB Blazers yesterday. I was on the Jay Barker Radio Network for about an hour. And he's like, we really disagree on what we consider classic rock. He doesn't think Motley Crue is classic rock. I'm like, dude. You got to evolve a little bit. I mean, Motley Crue's been around for 30 years. That is classic rock. Anyway, and I do play some things that are a little bit more recent that I consider, because if they rock, they rock. When we started the classic rock thing back in 1988 here in town, I'm dating myself again, we would play new music from Eric Clapton. If it rocked, it was good. We'd play it, and that's what we do around here. We also are playing that new Night Ranger tune, by the way, which is killer. I'll play it before the end of the show here at 9:30 this morning on the Kurre and Klapow show right here. By the way, we mentioned Joan Jett turned 63 today. David Coverdale turned 70. Tony Basil, remember her? Oh, Mickey, you're so fine, you blow my money, Mickey. She's 78 today. And a gal who I had a huge crush on. I mean, this is why I didn't get laid till I was like 22. Because while everyone else was doing Bob Seger and Led Zeppelin in high school, I was listening to Bread in England and John Ford Coley. Sorry. I changed a little bit, didn't I? I almost became a priest when I was like 17 or 18 years old, and then all of a sudden I met women, and I was like, okay, this is where I'm going. But there was a song that anyone that's about my age will remember, and it was one of those songs. It was a great song when it came out, but now you hear it and you're like, what were we thinking? Debbie Boone, Pat Boone's daughter, whew, she was rocking. I mean, come on now. You Light Up My Life. And I believe it set records for like being the longest number one. I think it was number one for like 7 weeks or something. Man, what a turd. Boy, that was a bad song. It was tough. Just to go to show how I did change, and I still have it in my blood, and I love it because my ears are bleeding this morning. I've had my headphones on ever since I got in here on 7 o'clock. AC/DC's Live Wire Wednesday later on tonight, 8 o'clock. full day. We're on the show live this morning. We'll be live again later on tonight from 6 until 8. And then right at 8 o'clock, we kick off Live Wire Wednesday, man. And I mean, it is unadulterated nastiness at its best. It's all AC/DC, all Angus from 8 until 9 p.m. later on tonight. I host the show brought to you by Southern Precision Staffing. They are great. They got behind it. They were the first sponsor show we had right here in KCAST Radio and the Tony Kurre Radio Network. And I love Kai Gregory, his son Knox, and his entire crew. They do everything from construction to IT to everything in between. If you have staffing needs, they will cover you up, not just here in Hoover where they're centered, but all over the United States of America, just like Tony Kurre Radio. You can find it anywhere and everywhere. They will take care of you. 205-682-2828, 205-682-2828, Southern Precision Staffing, where your word and your handshake still mean something. Welcome to the first day of fall. It is September 22nd. I mentioned the entire country is going to be about 10 to 15 degrees cooler than it was yesterday by the time we're done with this day, and it's perfect. I wish that Mother Nature would deal with our seasons better, because I'm not one of those dudes. Like, when I move on, I'm ready to move on, right? Whatever it is, I'm ready to move on. Let bygones be bygones. Let's go. And so when it's fall, I'm like expecting fall temperatures, like perfect. I can't remember in my entire lifetime where the temperature actually felt like it did on a day it's supposed to fall. It's great. I got woodchucks coming out, spiders all over the flipping place. It's great. Can't wait for Halloween. Can't wait for Thanksgiving, Christmas. We're 3 months away from Christmas. It's going to be great. Just put me in a good mood today with this cooler temperature outside. I don't have to wear a deodorant for the next 4 months, unbeknownst to the next woman I meet. Happy birthday to Joan Jett, Scott Baio, turned 61 today, David Coverdale, 70, Tony Basil, Debbie Boone. At the time, Debbie Boone. Speaking of the past, on this day in rock history, I'm about radio. I've been doing it for a long period of time. I'm still a hip, cool dude. I still get after it. But I do remember the people that blazed the trails before me. 1956, Billboard magazine prints an article which says, with new experiences to their credit, such as calling in riot squads, and with scars such as damaged seats, some arena and stadium officials have now turned their thumbs down to rock and roll in general. Mm-hmm. See where that got us? It got us Tony Kurre Radio is what it did. Also on this date in history, in 1980, John Lennon signs with Geffen Records after David Geffen promised to release his next album without even hearing any of the songs, which I think was a pretty good idea. The Who kicked off what they said would be their farewell tour in 1982. Now, 30 years later, Roger Daltrey is still out there doing some stuff. The 40-date trip grossed $23 million, which would be the highest grossing amount for any band in history. To that point, they would reunite back in 1985. Queen's Freddie Mercury makes a misstep in Hanover, Germany, falls down some stairs despite badly injuring his knee. He finishes the rest of the show out of boy. And also in 1985, I remember this show because I was still in high school. Actually, I was a sophomore. Yeah, I was a sophomore at Xavier. 1985, 80,000 fans watched the first Farm Aid concert featuring Bob Dylan, John Mellencamp, Billy Joel, B.B. King, Roy Orbison, Loretta Lynn, Neil Young, Tom Petty, Willie Nelson, and others performing who helped raise $7 million. The annual event takes place every fall to help the American family farmer. That continues to go on. And also in 1992, Bruce Springsteen plays an electric set for MTV's Unplugged show. The episode is renamed MTV Plugged. Only Bruce Springsteen can get a show changed. And also in 2015, this was so stupid when it happened. I remember when it happened because I was actually working at a restaurant where we used to sing Happy Birthday. A U.S. district judge ruled the original copyright to Happy Birthday was invalid, and the song would now be entirely welcome in the public domain. The copyright was obtained by Clayton F. Summy Company from the song's writers, sisters Mildred and Patty Hill, and bought for $15 million in 1988. Do you remember we used to go into restaurants and you couldn't sing Happy Birthday and they go, Happy Birthday, hey, and I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, back in 2015 they threw that out so you can do that again, and it should be. That should be public domain. You should be able to sing Happy Birthday anywhere and anywhere, and you have to pay anything. Rolling Stones on this history, nothing, but they did make history on Monday night. They're going to be starting their big tour again, the No Filter Tour, with, of course, Charlie Watts gone, and they'll start that on September 26th up in St. Louis. They're playing shows throughout North America. I think they're playing a show in Atlanta and Nashville. All you got to do is go to TonyCurryRadio.net, TonyCurryRadio.net, go to our tour page, type in Rolling Stones, or go to RollingStones.com, and you can find all the information about Mick and the Glimmer Twins. but they played a show on Monday night. They've been rehearsing in Boston, of all places, because they're unable to fly home because of COVID restrictions. So the Rolling Stones are stuck in the United States. So they've been rehearsing in Boston, and since Robert Kraft of the New England Patriots, the billionaire, lives in that area, he had a little party on Monday night. You know, when you have a wedding or you have a small get-together, maybe you're down at work play, you want to do something kind of special, you're like, who would I like to get to play? You know, who could I get to play a party that I could afford? Well, Robert Kraft's had Elton John, has had Paul McCartney, of all people, play private parties. He hired the Rolling Stones to play. If you go to Tony Kurre Radio on social media, on our Facebook page at KCAST Radio, you can see clips of the Rolling Stones singing Let's Spend Some Night Together, Miss You, and some other classics. They played at Robert Kraft's private party on Monday night, and it was very poignant because it was the first time that the Rolling Stones had played without Charlie, and at one point Mick Jagger starts to tear up on stage. Keith comes over and gives him a hug, and it's heart-wrenching, man. It is heart-wrenching. I know they had some fights. I know Charlie one time punched Mick in the nose, but they played together for 59 years. 59 years. Can you imagine? And it was just a great moment, and he's like, listen, this is the first time we're dedicating our entire tour, should I say, to Charlie Watts. And as a matter of fact, this brand new merchandise they've got out, the tongue has now turned black in honor of Charlie Watts, and you can pick that stuff up at rollingstones.com or wherever you will see the Rolling Stones in the North American tour. Pretty cool stuff. Happy fall to you. Tony Kurre here on the Tony Kurre Radio Network. It's part of Kurre and Klapow. Josh is off this week. He's taking his kids back to college. He'll be back next week right here on KCAST Radio and the Tony Kurre Radio Network. We were talking about the Rolling Stones playing at Robert Kraft's party on Monday night. I was talking to some of my producers around here. We were talking about what band would you want to have for a private party. If you could hire any band to play a private party, a birthday party, a wedding, whatever, who would it be? That's tough because when I originally got married, this was back in 2002, I thought Kenny Loggins would have been great to play. You know, he could sing Forever, he could sing some, and you could do some dancing to it, and I thought that'd be great. And so I reached out to several of my people, including Jay Wilson, who was working with New Era at the time and now works with Live Nation. I was like, hey, can you find out what it would cost me to get Kenny Loggins to play it? So he's like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, just an idea. It was it was a little outside my budget. Yeah. So we got Dick's Hat Band, and it was as good as any Kenny Loggins I could have hired because Dick's Hat Band was fantastic. Mike Lawley and the guys were fantastic. But if you just had any limited budget, and I don't know what Robert Kraft spent to get the Rolling Stones to play a private show. A lot of times these bands that will charge millions of dollars to do concerts will do these smaller shows for like a couple of $100,000, particularly if they don't have to bring their own crap. And the Rolling Stones were already in Boston rehearsing because they can't fly home back to the UK to do the rehearsing because of flight restrictions due to the pandemic. So they're just staying up in Boston, they're rehearsing, getting ready to go. And it's amazing to me because this band's been playing together for like 60 years, and they're still rehearsing. How cool is that? I mean, seriously. I mean, I heard the Austin Hanks story where his ZZ Top basically just go out and they can just show up and get on stage and flawlessly play an unbelievable hour-and-a-half show. And the Rolling Stones could do that too, I'm sure, because they've been playing together for so flippin' long. The fact that they're actually doing rehearsals, I think, is super cool. I've been backstage enough to know that some bands just show up, get on stage, and get after it. But the Rolling Stones, man, they're so prophetic. They're so professional. They just get after it. I absolutely love the fact that they're rehearsing before they go on stage. I knew they were going to have to rehearse because they obviously have to know the set list and songs they're going to play. But I just think it's super, super cool. And then you're talking about, Genesis the other night, who hadn't played together in 15 years. And Phil said, listen, I can't rehearse. I can't go anywhere because I'm too sore. I got the spinal injury. I'm banged up. And so we just get up there and we just let it rip. And they sounded fantastic. So kudos to the Rolling Stones playing the Robert Kraft. If you go to Tony Kurre Radio and see the video of them up there talking about Charlie Watts, it's just amazing. It's really, really good stuff. Tony Kurre Radio on the Kurre and Klapow Show. Dr. Josh is off this week, so I got a chance to actually get to talk. If you watch any of our YouTube channels, go to the Kurre and Klapow YouTube channel, subscribe to it. It's fantastic. We do shows almost every single day, well, Monday through Friday, and you can see a lot of those shows on the YouTube channel. Also, check out our podcast. I'm super proud of our podcast. It's so different because being an internet radio station, we don't have any of the FCC rules and regulations, so we can get after it a little bit. We like to push the envelope just a little bit, not for sake of pushing the envelope, just because we're two guys that have a lot to talk about. So we got into some amazing stories. One of the stories was about this Hulk. Am I saying Parabai? Am I saying it right? He is a soccer player. I don't know who he is. He's a soccer player. Evidently, he's known around the world, though, and is very good. He's 35. And evidently, he was married to his wife. They had 3 children for 12 years. And then he divorced her in 2019, then remarried her niece last year. Well, now she's pregnant with his 4th child. And people are like, well, wait a minute, this is just weird. We had a great podcast. Again, go to wherever you get your podcast, Audio Boom, the Kurre and Klapow Show. It's a great conversation, and we talked ourselves into pretzels trying to figure out whether he was doing something that was cool. Most family members thinking not. But it was really funny because after we heard about it, you didn't really hear, okay, was he doing anything with her while he was married and blah, 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 blah. And he basically came out and said, listen, I'm not going to lie to you. She's downright gorgeous, and I couldn't keep my hands off. He goes, I feel horrible for what I did, but you cannot keep love from happening, is basically what he said. Even if it knows it's killing the rest of the family. Nothing will hold love back. He's like, they're both smoking hot. But, man, I just had to jump all over it, and he did. Now he's having another baby, and they're remarried, so congratulations to him. It's one of the many stories you can hear right here on KCAST Radio. Isn't it good? We talked about Nicole Richie blowing out candles for her 40th birthday. She posted it last night. She caught her hair on fire. It's worth a look. Go to Tony Kurre Radio on Twitter. It's hilarious. She actually posted it, which is really cool because it could have turned like a Michael Jackson thing. She could have burned her whole face up. She must have had some hairspray in there, man, because it lit quick. It makes me wonder. I have a son, my 14-year-old son, who's got some special needs, some challenges, and he has a difficult time singing. And I remember at one point, I forget what his birthday was, and I think a lot of parents have done this because when you have like a 1 or 2-year-old, they're just spitting all over the place or spitting on the cake. And I mean, I've come really close to burning the nose off a couple of my children. Like, don't get too close. And they blow on the candle. Next thing you know, their lips are on fire. You never done that? Yeah, that's why you should be blowing from a distance. Help your kids out until they're like 3 or 4 until they can actually blow. And again, you got snot and all kinds of stuff coming out of their mouth and their nose and stuff like that. I'm not eating that piece. Just put like that. See, that's why you add a candle for each year, because as you get older, you know how to blow better without, like coveting your cake. So check out the video. It's fantastic. And of course, KCAST Radio is now Tony Kurre Radio and Tony Kurre Radio Network. You can check us out on social media platforms all over the place. It's fantastic. I've been working on my kids. Speaking of my kids, I'm working on my kids' iPhone right now. She got herself locked out of her phone. And, of course, you know how kids are with phones. So you'll have to excuse me if I sound like I'm a little distant. I'm trying to figure out. And now someone's telling me I need to go to the Apple store. And I'm like, no, please. It's like shopping on Black Friday. I'm like, I'm good. I'd rather go buy another $1,000 phone and just, like, try to move the stuff over there than have to go to the Apple store. But it looks like that's where I'm going, so I'll do